Hare Krishna. Welcome to Transcendental Thursdays Special Association. Today we're going to deal with a special subject matter called attachment. Attachment is something which is very fundamental, which is very special for any living entity who has got life. Without attachment, life doesn't move. All the movement, function in life is happening because of attachment. How to deal with it is about all today's session. Dealing with attachments and the consequences of attachments, and how does attachment per se develop in first place. What does Krishna has to say about attachment in the Bhagavad Gita? We'll deep dive today from the different verses in the Bhagavad Gita and recommend you how to do that based on his teachings. Before we do that, let us fold our hands and offer this wonderful prayers to Swami Srila Prabhupada, who can bless us, enlighten with his transcendental purpose of Bhakti Vedanta. Here we go. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakturanda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All of us, being sentient, being persons, invariably have attachment. सब में attachment होती है. Attachment के बिना जिंदगी आगे नहीं बढ़ता. अगर attachment है, उस person के प्रति हम कुछ ना कुछ करते हैं उनके लिए. We'll have attachment for persons. We'll have attachment for situations. The previous situation, we have attachment for places, we have attachment for success. And when there is a mismatch in the expectation from circumstances, from places, from family, from situations, from success, we get into a miserable cycle of pain and miseries. So I just want to narrate an interesting part of my college life. It was during the campus placements. Generally, during campus placements, we had this understanding that I was quite good at reasoning and verbal. One subject matter, I was little doubtful and not so strong in it. And there's another friend of mine who was good at that. And we, in the previous night, we walked out. So see, whenever it happens, we'll make sure that I sit here, you sit here. And I'll show you this part, I'll help you with this part, and you should help me with this part. And this was a plan, and it was deal stuck. And next day we woke up and there was a pre-placement talk. After the pre-placement talk, there was a paper to be written, the aptitude question, which you have to write to get into the group discussion and interviews. So I, unfortunately, on that day, arrived little late, just 5 minutes probably. So my friends who had struck a deal with me yesterday, in the place in which I was supposed to sit, someone else was sitting. And I was requesting him, sir, please don't sit here. This is a place which we had discussed and stuck a deal. You please get up. And he was in no mood to move from that place. He was hell-bent that he would continue to sit there. I was pleading, I was yelling, I was requesting, all emotions I was going through, but he was not in a mood to move from that an inch. And quickly, the invigilator came in. So sometimes, we overly get attached to that place where you want to sit because we had planned, but doesn't happen. But after some time, things happen differently. That's a different story altogether. It's a small examination. Anyways, what's there in your package, it will come, and if you have done nicely, it'll get it. And eventually, after that scenario, I had to write the examination. Eventually, that exam was quite okay, and I cracked that examination. I had to go for a group discussion. Then there was an interview. Eventually, I got a job. Having said that, at that point of time, when I wanted to sit in that place, because I was attached to that place and circumstances, because we had a plan, and when it didn't happen, there was a pain. Okay. Another story, like say for example, someone is very dear to us. We have spent a lot of time with them, our mother, father, or a wife, kid. When they lose their lives. Say, for example, a case of a person who had his son after a very long time, uh, and after a couple of years of medical intervention, finally they had a child, and the child grew up swiftly, and eventually one fine day, for some reasons or the other, unfortunate incident happened in that boy's life, and he passed away. And there was a commotion, there was a confusion, there was pain, there's grief, and lot of things, because they got the child after a very long time, and they were almost quite old, and this child was growing up very nicely, and this tragedy stuck, and in that tragedy the son is no more, and that was painful for him, and the entire family is grieving. At that point of time, the head of the family went on to doing his activities. He was sober, he was normal, he was not filled with pain per se like his wife and the relatives. And looking at this condition of the father, the head of the family, all of the relatives were shocked actually. They started asking him questions. Sir, what's happening to you? Don't you feel pain that your son is no more? You don't have tears in your eyes. You're just cool and calm and normal. How dare? How come? Then he answered, having a smile on his face. He said, yesterday night I had a dream. In this dream I was a king and I had 8 children. I too lost those 8 children. I was mourning. And now today I have one child who was very dear to me and is no more. Which child should I mourn for? Those 8 children which I lost in the dream, or this child whom I lost now? So meaning to say that the life is like a dream. The experience, the dream, what we see in the night is also a reality. In that sense, the experience is a reality. The feeling what we go through, although it is temporary. The same way, this world, whomever we have relationships, all temporary relations. The world is itself is temporary. And what to speak of anything else? So when we're attached to persons, when they move out of our life, we had many friends in our 10th standard, 12th standard, engineering, even during when we were working. But today they are in different parts of the world, untouched, by our affection or love and care or whatever it is. They are in their own world. And as Krishna says in the Gita, you keep passing, just like travelers come in a hotel inn and they stay for some time, they make friendship, and after some time they depart. Or when you're traveling in a train, you have a long distance journey for 2 days, you're together, when their station they will depart. Or like a straws, Prabhupada says this, when the straws in the ocean, based on the tossing of the waves, they assemble together. When the waves again toss it up, they get separated. That's how all the living entities, unnecessary attachment will only cause us miseries. Another classical example of King Indra. Indra was cursed by his spiritual master Brihaspati to become a swine, to become a pig. And he was in that affair. And Brahma, when he saw there's no one to take care of the administrative affairs, had to come down to the place where Indra was there. Indra, in the form of pig, was enjoying his life with stool and his complex family relationship. And he was engrossed. And he was taking care of his family members. And Brahma, when he saw and instructed, Chalo, you have to go. Then he said, I'll not be able to come with you. Who are you? Why I should come with you? This is my family. ये मेरे बच्चे, ये मेरे पत्नी है, ये मेरे जगह है, इतनी अच्छी खूबसूरत अच्छा खाना मिलता है हमको. So what should I ask for more than this? So he was in so much attached to that city, king of heaven, but no, conditioned by conditioning of getting attached to his family members and relatives and the food what he eats. Indra, king of heaven, just imagine. And Brahma had to forcefully, in another context, had to kill his wife and children. Then he was, hey, why did you do so? Then he had to forcefully even take Indra out of that position. That's the causeless mercy of the spiritual master. We are also conditioned by the attachment for so many things. Because of this attachment, we are traversing in different species of life. Out of 84 lakh species, we are just traversing like this, left, right, and center. So this is all because of our attachment. Now, how do we Just like people, sometimes we are attached to people, we are some attached to sometimes, like just like if Virat Kohli doesn't perform, we feel pained. If he has a difficulty with his family, we feel pained. And if he scores, if he wins for the country, we feel elated. So our happiness and distress is depend upon that person's performance. So situation, place, family, and sometimes we have a understanding of success. Of course, earning money, having a good job, or having a business, and or being an entrepreneur, or what are the needs of life. When you are successful, it's okay, but not at the cost of your peace. Many times, people go through this hardship, even if they have things to portray in their life, or even they have achieved success. Like classical example would be the students pursuing these days in the premier institutes of our country: Indian Institute of Technology, National Institute of Technology, premier institutes in our country, institute of national importance, the pinnacle of success. And they fought through all the hardships to be there in those campus where they dreamt of, but uh, they couldn't handle the pressure and they just give up. So because they were attached and they couldn't make it to the and they give up. So in all these cases, with the stories which I've said, people are overly attached. Anything which you are overly attached to more than the required, then that will cause you pain and grief and miseries. Now in Bhagavad Gita, in many places, Krishna talks about attachment. I was just going through the reasons for attachment. I found out two verses. One is in 14.12. If you have the verse with you, you can open that verse. 14.12, Krishna very clearly tells how does attachment develops. He says, Lobha pravrittir aramba karmana masamaspara rajasi etanti jayante vivrade bharatashrava. He says, O chief of Bharatas, addressing Arjuna, that when there is increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, uncontrollable desire and hankering and intense endeavor develop. This attachment is caused by the mode of passion, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says. Another place in second chapter I was working on, where does attachment Krishna speaks about. The second chapter, 62 verse, again, the famous words which most commonly quoted, Dhyayato Vishyan Pumsa Sangas Te Supajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Bijayate. While contemplating on the sense objects or the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment. 14.12 and 2.62. While contemplating the objects of senses, a person develops attachment. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. He goes on to say, after anger, what happens? Illusion. After illusion, bewilderment of memory. When the memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. See how Krishna is telling how one develops attachment. Now Krishna in many places in the Bhagavad Gita tells us, regards us how to deal with this attachment. One such solution which Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita is in 2.47, the famous verse, which is the most misunderstood verse of the Bhagavad Gita, or most abused verse of the Bhagavad Gita. In the sense, is most oftenly misquoted for wrong reasons. Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbur mate sangostu karmani. Here it is mentioned by the Krishna, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, you have right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your action. Never consider, again, never consider, this is a point, never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached. Krishna is telling, don't be attached for not doing your duty. You should be attached for doing your duty and should never be attached for the results of the duty, results of the actions. And never consider yourself the cause of the results as a matter of duty. In the purport, many places, Krishna uses the word attachment. Arjuna was advised, therefore, by the Lord to fight as a matter of duty, without attachment. Any work what we perform should be without attachment. Attachment to what? Attachment to result. His non-participation in the battle is another side of attachment. Such attachment never leads to path of salvation. Any attachment, positive or negative, is a cause of bondage. See, attachment, positive or negative, is cause for bondage. Bondage. Bondage will bond you, bind you to this material world. Here goes on to says, any attachment, positive or negative, is cause of bondage. Inaction is sinful. अगर नहीं करोगे तो sinful. Therefore, fighting as a matter of duty was the only auspicious path of salvation for Arjuna. This is what Krishna speaks about attachment in 2.47. Again, what happened if not attached? Now, Krishna is asked Arjuna to fight without attachment. Now, what will happen to you, happen to Arjuna, happen to all of us, अगर हम अपना काम करते हैं बिना अटैचमेंट के. 2.56 Prabhupada in the translation very nicely explains. He says, one who is not disturbed, 2.56, yes, one who is not disturbed in spite of threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, who is freed from attachment, fear and anger, is the called sage of steady mind. When your mind is steady, you can do what you want to do. You will not be affected by the outcome, what's happening to the action of what we do. That's very important. So that's the result of when we perform an activity without attachment. What happened if not attached? Another place, again, 2.64, Prabhupada very clearly explains by the translation, 2.64. One who can control his senses, one who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom, can obtain the mercy of the Lord and thus become from all attachment aversion. He becomes freed from all attachment by aversion. If he is freed from how he can be freed from attachment and aversion? By regulated principles of freedom. The four regulated principles. Obtain complete mercy of the Lord. And thus one can be freed from all attachment and aversion. And for that, and same thing elsewhere is mentioned in 3.19. I was just looking at those points where Krishna talks about attachment. 3.19, Krishna very clearly says, Tasmat asakta Tasmat asakta satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hi acharan karma param apnoti purushaha. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. For working without attachment, one attains supreme. Just imagine the power of working without attachment. Imagine the power of working without attachment. Krishna here in Karma Yoga chapter 19th, chapter 3, yes, 19th verse, he is telling, therefore, without being attached to fruitive activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. A Krishna conscious, in the purport Prabhupada writes, a Krishna conscious person has no attachment for the results, but acts on behalf of Krishna alone. He engages in all kinds of activities and completely not attached. This is what Arjuna did. Initially, he was negatively attached. What will happen? But when he saw that Krishna wanted him to do as a matter of duty, he just performed. Results, the Lord will decide based on my actions. For devotee, the Lord decides. For non-devotees, based on their karma. So even the non-devotees performs his activity, he'll be elated. And if you perform this under the guidance of bona fide spiritual master, under the guidance of Bhagavad Gita, he'll be further elevated. Again, in the fourth chapter is a beautiful chapter, transcendental knowledge, after the famous verse of Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam, the 10th verse, Krishna very beautifully tells, this is an all-time favorite of mine, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Man Maya Mam Upashritaha Bhavo Gnanat Tapasa Puta Mad Bhava Magataha. He says, being freed from attachment, fear and anger, being fully absorbed in me. That means you have to be engaged in Krishna consciousness by chanting and hearing. Taking refuge in me, that means Sarvadharman Paritajya Magmekam Sharanam. And many persons in the past have become purified by knowledge of me. And thus they all attained transcendental love for me. This is the goal. That's why Krishna is telling attachment we have to have, but that attachment, when we shift it to Krishna, when we do it for His pleasure, when we do it for His Ananda, because we are Ananda seekers, we are Ananda Mayo Abhyasat, we are made for pleasure, we are made for happiness. That is our birthright. Our make is like that, our manufacture is like that. Mama Ivamsho Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are made like that. So when we do that for Him, giving up attachment, fear and anger, then we'll be able to attain happiness and bliss, because that the transcendental love of Krishna is the summit of all our activities, the summit of all our devotional attributes. Again, beautifully in the 5th chapter also, he covers out of the 4th chapter. 5th chapter, if you take at the 10th verse, yes, that the 10th verse is beautifully Krishna compiles. He says, one who performs his duty without attachment, again, without attachment. Now, in the 2.47, Krishna was speaking about karmanya vadikaraste. You have a right to perform your duty, but you are not entitled for the fruits of action. But what to do with the fruits? Fruits is there, fruits I'll get, I have to work for the fruits. No, Krishna here, he further is telling karma yoga, action in Krishna consciousness, the chapter name, 5th chapter, 10th verse, translation, he says, one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the result to the Supreme God. You have to surrender. Is not affected by sinful action, as lotus leaf is untouched by water. Now, how do you do this? Whatever fruit we get, whatever, say for example, whatever Lakshmi we earn, whatever money we earn, we don't give it to Krishna conscious activities. We don't partake with Krishna. Or we don't have money, but we have a body, we have physics. We practically render devotional service to Krishna. We use our intelligence for propagating the message of Krishna. You use our tongue, words, to share this message of Bhagavad Gita. Prana, Artha, Diya, Vacha. With all these 4 things, we have to render service. We have to offer it back in gratitude to Krishna, because everything in existence, what we are, what we have, what we see, everything is belonging to Krishna. If you don't give it back to Krishna, you are a thief, and thief will be punished. And that is the result of not offering to Krishna. You will be punished by the 3 modes of material nature in the form of 3 Adhyatmika, Adi Devika, Adi Bhautika Kleshas. We are criminals. Yes, we are criminals. When we break the law, we are put into difficulties. When we follow the law, we will be protected by the Lord. So as intelligent folks, we should understand what Krishna wants us to do. That's why we should read the Bhagavad Gita, where it speaks about attachment. Now, any attachment other than attachment to Krishna will put into difficulty. And immediately after this verse, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 11th verse of the 5th chapter, Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness, further as he says, what happens? The yogis. Because throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is emphasizing Arjuna by yogi bano, yogi bano, yogi bano. And the best yogi is bhakti yogi. That's why in this verse also he is repeating the same thing. The yogis, abandoning attachment. Abandoning the attachment. Act with the body, mind, intelligent, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. So this should be our attitude. This should be our purpose. Whatever I do, and the endeavor, the process, the end result, the goal is purification. The results anyways is not in our hand. So that art, science and commerce of rendering an action is taught by a bona fide spiritual master. That's why Krishna in the 4th chapter, 34th verse, he says, one should approach a bona fide spiritual master, surrender unto him, ask relevant questions, and do seva, to render seva. Then upadekshatik gnana, gnanina tattvadarshana. He will reveal you the absolute truth, because he has seen the absolute truth. That is the point. And finally, about attachment, Krishna in the 18th chapter, he concludes, because many places Krishna speaks about that. In the final 18th chapter is the perfection of Bhagavad Gita, the perfection of renunciation, the conclusion. 18th chapter in the 6th verse, last verse of today's text also, he says, Etani apitu karmani sangam tyaktva falani cha kartavyani me partha nishchitam matamuttamam. This is Krishna's matamuttamam. This is my final opinion. Krishna says in the Gita, that is my final opinion. What is the final opinion? The answer, Sunyanga, please. All these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. See, how important it is not to expect results. Because if you keep on expecting results, you will be attached to the results. And when you don't get the results according to your intention or expectation, then you will be pained. Or when you get according to expectation, then you will be elated. And you cannot have a mind of steady mind. Then it will be difficult. That's why Krishna is telling all these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty. O son of Pritha, that is my final opinion. In the purport, in the last line, Prabhupada says, a devotee, because you're all devotees, you're aspiring devotees, you're trying to become devotees. Prabhupada is guiding us how to have this attitude. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice or charity which will help him in the discharge of devotional service to the Lord. In other words, as Rupa Goswami says, accept things which are favorable for advancement in Krishna consciousness and reject things which are unfavorable for advancing in Krishna consciousness. But there are people ignorant who doesn't want to do it. Krishna also warns about such people in the Bhagavad Gita. जो अटैच नहीं होना चाहते, जो अटैच हो जाते हैं, उनका क्या होगा? Again in Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, I remember, yes, 3rd chapter, 25th verse. Yes, one sec, give me some time. 25th verse, here we go. He says, जो नहीं करते मेरी बात, as ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results. Ignorant कैसे काम करते हैं? They perform their duties with attachment to the results. Similarly, the learned may also act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people to the right path. So in many places Krishna, again 3.34 also further he says, very nice, and although I concluded quickly, but these 3 verses, and I had to share this because this is very interesting, because the way Krishna analyzes things, because very nice it is. So once we fall in love with Krishna's text and the Bhagavad Gita, our problem with anything is gone. Very beautifully explains here. 3.34. What is the problem with attachment and detachment? What happens to us if we are not following the Krishna's instruction in terms of attachment? Krishna is telling here, attraction and repulsion for sense objects are felt by embodied beings. जैसे हम लोग हैं, जो आत्मा है लेकिन हम शरीर में है, because of that हमारा attraction भी होगा, repulsion भी होगा, कभी त्यागा. But one should not fall under the control of the senses and the sense objects. लेकिन हम उनके कंट्रोल में नहीं पड़नी चाहिए, because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. We are advancing in Krishna consciousness, we want to progress in Krishna consciousness, but this attachment is a stumbling path for the advancement in Krishna consciousness. That's why we should be very careful not to get attached to anything other than Krishna. So if our life is centered around Krishna, if the focal point of our life is Krishna, at the periphery as a matter of duty, we can have attachment for people, situations, things, but not at the cost of our attachment to Krishna. So that supersedes any other attachment to anything else. If you have something more attached if you are attached more to any other thing other than Krishna, your cycle of repetition of birth and death will continue. Hence, it's imperative for all of us to just focus on our Krishna's attachment, and that Krishna's attachment can be developed when we are attached to the teachings of a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, when we read his books, when we hear his lectures, when we participate in his mission, when we help. Of course, a pure devotee, Acharya, doesn't need your help, but when we participate in this mission, we get helped to get detached from the attachment to this material world and get attached to his lotus feet. And that attachment will lead to our attachment for Krishna, and that attachment will make us truly happy to the place, because that where we have come from, to that place we will go. And for that, we need to follow seriously, strictly, sincerely the teachings of Swami Srila Prabhupada, and that is chanting 16 rounds of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and follow the 4 regulatory principles. If you do this, we will be saved, otherwise we have to suffer. How to be detached, how not to be attached while doing our work so that we can be attached to Krishna? Very interesting question. Prabhupada was also asked this question, and Prabhupada answers this very beautiful, giving analogy of a paramour. Paramour is someone who has got an lover apart from her wife. It may be husband or wife. If a wife has a lover other than her husband, that attachment for that lover will be very intense, very strong. So much so that she will be working so efficiently, so productively that no one at her house, in-laws house, will doubt her character. She'll take care of her in-laws, children, family, husband, but deep within her heart, always 24/7, she'll be contemplating, thinking, meditating upon her beloved lover. In the same way, we need to work in that consciousness. We need to develop love for Krishna. When we develop love for Krishna, you may be a student, you may be a family man, you may be someone in the business world. It doesn't matter. You will be doing it as a matter of duty, but deep within your heart, you will be always contemplating, when will I finish my 16 rounds? When will I read Srila Prabhupada books? When will I come to folk? When will I have association of devotees? When will I have prasadam? So we should mold our life in such a way that as a matter of duty, we'll be doing all the activities materially. But deep within our heart, we should be always contemplating on advancing in Krishna consciousness. For that, our strong points are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra attentively, 16 hours every day, following the four-letter principles, being in touch with devotees. At least on weekends, we should give it for Krishna, and weekdays, we should continue our activities nicely. In this way, we'll be able to balance the attachment and detachment and be attached to Krishna and get liberated by this. Okay, so with this short note, I end for this Transcendental Thursday session. Thank you so much for patiently hearing.